Yeah, I don't know what kind of doggy doo-doo recording that was earlier today that I did for this particular podcast episode. I just can't believe that I was actually going to release it as the episode. I started thinking about it after I hit that I was done with the podcast recording, and I was like, man, that sucked. That recording right there. And I think my problem is because I have been, within the last month, in a mode of working with kind of a co-host. I don't know if you guys know this, but Tossing Salad Podcast has been working on a side project. Tossing Salad Podcast presents Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast. And I've been working with a co-host on a secondary project. And I am in the mode of when I get on here that I have somebody else that I'm bouncing things off of and talking, having a good time with, and switching it back up to podcast mode. Not necessarily if I'm interviewing somebody, but where I am monologuing at the beginning. And I am not set up to go between having a co-host and then doing this on my own. I have to do one or the other because it's messing me up. It's messing me up really bad. I got done with that recording and I was like, I don't feel good at all with it. 20 to 30 minutes of rambling, complaining, and it wasn't even what this episode is supposed to be. This episode here is the 6-month anniversary of Tossing Salad Podcast and where we're going from here. Because the last basically month here, we've been focusing in on the Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast. And it's totally fun. My problem is I can't find a way to figure out how to divvy up my time between both of them. It's almost like I can do one or the other, and that is me to a T in life. I am a one widget in, one widget out kind of a guy. I cannot multitask. I cannot do multiple things at once. I have to be able to just focus on one thing at a time. So the dynamic there that messes around with me is having a co-host. Chelsea is fantastic. This is why I'm doing a podcast shoot off with her. It's 24 live episodes of coming up with a potential podcast idea, running through ideas of shows, topics, skits, all kinds of different, like a variety type show, and getting input from live viewers, letting you guys kind of help us out with thinking through some of these ideas that we're coming up with, and then going through them on an actual live episode, testing it out, and then doing a recap the next week on, okay, well, how did that go? Do we want to add that into a long running show down the road? If we decide after 24 live episodes, if we're going to continue working together and come up with this actual project, whether it's a podcast or a live. But that has consumed me in the last few weeks. And the podcast itself, the Tossing Salad Podcast, has taken a back seat to that just because I can't function doing two things at once. So I decided I had to go take a ride to go pick up groceries. And as I was driving, I was thinking to myself, replaying some of the things that I recorded for this episode. And I was like, what a shit episode that would have been. If I would have gone through, edited that episode, and then turned that one in as show number 23 or 24, I would have been very disappointed with myself, because the bar at which I want to put stuff out should be a little higher than what I did. So I decided, you know what? It's no big deal. Roll with the punches, right? Roll with the punches. And I wasn't happy with it, then don't put it out. Don't complain about it. Don't put it out. And re-record something. And that's what I'm doing. And I feel totally better right now. I feel more like myself. Maybe I just needed to excise uh, that little vomit of information that I was throwing up to you to explain where we have been with the podcast, where we're going with the podcast. Now, specifically, this is what this episode is about. It's just a me episode, no guest, but it's kind of where do we go from here? Is the podcast still going on? I know a couple people have asked me, hey, you haven't put anything out in the last like few weeks. The last episode we put out for the podcast was the Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast show. Where is the Tossing Salad podcast at? Well, I will tell you, going forward, most of my energy and creative juices are going to go into this direction, the Tossing Salad podcast direction, which does include the Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast show. Again, that's kind of the Tossing Salad podcast presents Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast. And then if that develops and turns into a show of its own, we'll figure that out as we go. That's the fun part of following along with that side project, is you get to watch Chelsea and I week to week live come up with ideas. What are the problems? What are things we have to consider? Tossing ideas back and forth. And then, like I said, then try to do the show the next week and then see how that goes. That's going to be a fun thing. And I hope that in the end, Chelsea and I have something, a big chunk of content to where we're both having fun. We both want to continue doing this, and then we're going to make that into a show. But I don't know. Last episode, I gave it like, I think a 70% chance of following through. And I'm not quite sure where Chelsea stands on that. I think I think she gave it, I don't know. Did she say 50-50 on the live show? I don't remember, but we'll see. But specifically Tossing Salad podcast, where do we go from here after 6 months? We've hit the 20th episode anniversary mark also, which is the 20 episodes for a podcast. I think I saw a stat to where it says all new podcast that 97% do not make it to their 20th episode, which is crazy. And when I first started, I was like, 20 episodes, that's easy. It's not an easy thing, especially after you get going and then you start to see how you want the show to look, basically the production side of things, how you want it to look, how you want it to sound. You start adding in new cameras, new lighting, new audio, background lights, new software. This is our third software platform that we're on. I think we're on one that's going to be here to stay for the long term, at least for a year, because I paid for a year. And that's StreamYard. But with all of the upgraded things that go to the production side of a podcast show, of a live show that I have done here, that are behind the scenes that we haven't really talked about, the more cool but complicated things that you add into a show, the more things that can go wrong. It's not a guarantee that things are going to look better or sound better. The potential is higher. There's a higher ceiling when you're using higher end equipment with more settings to do, with better lenses and better lights, better sounding mics. But if you don't know how to use each and every one of your tools that you have at your disposal here, if you don't know how to use it, and then you don't know how to tweak the settings, it can and will probably look and sound much worse than just shooting with your iPhone or whatever phone you have, whatever basic thing you have. But this is the fun part of why I'm doing the podcast, why I'm doing the live shows with Chelsea. It's learning how to do all this stuff, not really knowing long-term where we're going to end up. We have no idea where we're going. We have no idea what we're wanting really to do, other than we just want to do. For the short term, we, Chelsea, want to be creative, have fun, do some different things that we've never had the opportunity to do. And finally, I've found somebody that wants to do it officially in public. And that's the thing to where we are going to pursue down that avenue. Do I have specific details? No. All I know is most of my time and effort is going to be on this side of things, Tossing Salad Podcast and developing things on this side. There's a lot of frustrations with it, especially the last couple of weeks. Had a few things going on here, just in regular life type stuff. That's just like, but we all do, right? We all have issues. We all have things kind of going on. I know that I spend a lot of time on social media among the various platforms that are options to us. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everything associated with the podcast, which is all of the above for the Tossing Salad Podcast, because we have an account for Tossing Salad Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, as well as all of the podcast platforms you can find us on. But as you well know, we only have so much time and effort that we can put in a day. And to do it on multiple platforms is very hard. Now, you guys, I have been a huge proponent of diversifying out of just being on one platform. And the thing you have to consider when you do that is, well, how do you manage the communities and multiple platforms, the time, the content that you create? It's very much like they say, you get out what you put in. And over the 8 years or so on Instagram of all that I put in initially, I've gotten out of it a lot of great friendships, fun content, things like that. But I also realize, and this is just me as a person, after so long of doing something, I get terribly bored with it. And I feel like I get into a creative rut. And I feel that way with Instagram specifically. It doesn't help that all of the changes Instagram has gone through in the last couple of years is making the experience there worse. The one benefit that Instagram did have over some of the other social media platforms, and I'll say it, it paid creators who were able to, let's say specifically, get into the creator, the Reels bonus platform, making a nice chunk of change on the side for doing things that we normally would do on social media, on Instagram, making Reels. And that's tied into how many people you make, how much you make is tied into how many views that you get per video that you post. Well, that's going away for Instagram, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff that has gone away. The fun part of Instagram for me, and I speak for myself, Instagram for me is not really any fun. The only thing that I can get out of it is to try to maintain some of the relationships that I have, but then it's just a glorified messenger. And Adam Mosseri, the top guy over at Instagram, he admits this, that the main thing that people use Instagram for is messaging, direct messaging. Most of the activity on Instagram is behind the scenes. It's not on the profile page. It's not in the stories. It's in the DMs. So Instagram, with whatever changes that they enact every so often, they're changing as well. And I get it. Over time, everything's going to change. And hopefully it's for the better. For me, it's not. TikTok is a little more enjoyable for me as far as consuming content. And on TikTok, I actually have multiple accounts. Just wait, because I know what most of you guys are saying. I know what you're saying, or that you're wanting to say. I can hear it. TikTok's going to be banned here soon. And even though that has been kind of rumored to happen over the last couple of years, I think this one's pretty serious. I think TikTok will be most likely banned unless we see something crazy to where they divest and spin off into an American company. Not to get into all those details there, but it's something that I am going to have to consider, because TikTok for me is the one I probably spend the most time on. Again, I've got multiple accounts. Why do I have multiple accounts? Well, I've got the garden account, the Tossing Salad podcast account, and then I've got a food account, which is nothing but food content. TikTok, what it does well, the algorithm, is if you can train it properly over time, will feed you content that you really, really want to see. So much better than Instagram or YouTube. YouTube does a pretty good job, but nothing is like TikTok. That's not to say everybody loves TikTok more than everybody else. I'm just saying for me, that's why I spend a lot of time on TikTok. So the content I do post on TikTok is kind of the same garden content for the garden voyeur that I do on Instagram, that I do on YouTube. Tossing Salad podcast content's kind of the same between TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. But where Brian just sits down and consumes content outside of anything garden, and I consume very little garden content, to be honest with you. I used to years ago. I rarely consume any garden content. It doesn't interest me. Let's not even get into it. But I love seeing creative new ideas of how to prepare food in the kitchen. So I have a specific account that I have on TikTok that is nothing but cooking. So I've got that one. I've got a personal one. It's a personal, doesn't have my name on it, and it doesn't even have my picture on it yet. That one is just so that I can consume content that just interests me personally. That's the one I use the most. But I don't have to worry about people finding me, nor do I have to worry about who I have to follow. And the key reason for that is not because I'm an introvert and that I don't want to talk to people or interact with people. And that's not necessarily the case. It's a big thing. Yeah. In general, in real life, I don't want to interact with many people. But on my TikTok account, that is a personal account that doesn't have my name or picture on it, it's all the topics of subjects that I like that are outside of either gardening or cooking. And that's all it feeds me for the most part. So I don't feel pressured. We all feel pressure in following other people back. How did that get us over on Facebook? Not very good. Right? Everybody, we're all not meant to follow each other or interact with each other or know what somebody else thinks or what they have to say. Some people do. That's fine. For me, I don't. I have a certain threshold to where I care what I want to see from other people. It's a wonder why I don't hang out with anybody, right? Or how could anybody want to interact or be friends with me? I don't know. But if TikTok goes away, I lose a big chunk of what I find fun. But for me, I'll be a little sad, but I won't be devastated. TikTok, my Garden Voyeur account, is by far my biggest account that I have. And that took me a little under a year to develop, of just doing the normal stuff that I was doing on Instagram. I did that within months and then some on TikTok. And that just shows you why I've had this relationship problem with Instagram. It took me 6 years, 7 years to get to, let's say, I don't know, 10,000 people on Instagram, which at the time was fine. It was fine because I didn't know any better. COVID hits, everybody's home, everybody starts a garden, the account kind of blows up a little bit more, and I jump up, as does a lot of other people. But then things are changing, and all of a sudden people that follow you aren't able to see what you want to see or what you post. You can't see what your friends are doing as much. More sponsored content, more just BS out there. And somehow TikTok just had it right. So what I did in 5-6 years on Instagram, I did on TikTok within months. And at one point on Instagram, I think the highest I had was like 12,000 followers, which it's all relative. But on TikTok, I'm at, I don't know, 40,000. And that's not even really trying. That's not even really cultivating a community there, because all I was doing is kind of reposting what I was doing on Instagram. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be reliant on Instagram. It's not going to be the only game in town. Let's see what TikTok has to offer. Did that for a few months. And then I was like, oh, wow, there is a community on TikTok. And there seems to be a little more action going on. There's a little more love going on over there. So that caught more of my attention over the last couple of years. But with the podcast coming up, and when you have a podcast, you have to have video clips to go with it. And that just makes sense that YouTube has to get involved. So therefore, that's why I spend a lot of time on social media in general. And that's why I can't continue to feed all of the platforms. I got to feed more than one, because I don't want to be reliant on any of them. Just like if TikTok goes away, if TikTok was my only one that I was doing, I'd be pretty devastated. There's a bunch of small businesses on TikTok, whether they're large creators or actual small businesses, that generate a lot of revenue on TikTok through sponsored stuff or working with other companies, selling their wares, getting out there. And they're big on TikTok, and that's the only place that they're big on. That's going to be tough. But if TikTok goes away, I'm perfectly fine with it. And I'll take that effort from there, and I'll probably put it into YouTube and who knows where else. The one thing I'm fairly sure right now, and I've hinted at this for the last couple of years, I think I am, yeah, I'm done with Instagram. It's gonna stay, because that's an account that's established. Most of my garden community friends are, and I would say they're just friends, not necessarily just garden friends, but they're friends now. That's where most of them reside, and will probably stay. And the easiest way to continue to interact is going to be having an account there on Instagram and playing in the DMs and posting every once in a while. Now, Instagram, the feature where you can schedule your content, has been a godsend for me, because now I have a thing to where, instead of one day where I can post 5 or 6 pieces of content, I can just do whatever content I'm doing and just schedule it out as if I'm on Instagram almost every day or something, or every other day, as opposed to just being completely gone. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be completely gone, but I'm not going to be as active on Instagram. It's just not any fun for me. I don't see I can't be creative really. It's just, yeah. So the scheduling thing on Instagram has been great, and I've tested that out in the last few weeks to where I've posted a few pieces of content that have just been stuff that I've done a while ago, pictures I've taken a while ago, and I spread it out. And then I pop in literally like once, twice, maybe a day for a few minutes, check the DMs. I don't even scroll through the profile. check the DMs, maybe a couple stories at the top that are the first couple stories, and that's it. Now, I am aware that what I said before, you get out what you put in. I'm going to put in very little into Instagram going forward. I may not get out of it what I love about it still, like I used to, and I get it. But we all change, and we all have to make decisions, and we have to do things that we enjoy and that uh, we feel like we want to do. I, I I don't want to feel like I have to use Instagram. Like for the last few years, I felt like I have to or had to. I don't want that feeling, and I'm fortunate. I feel like I should be able to just make a change if I wanted to. So that's where the time and effort from all the social media platforms, and then going forward, the ranking priority of my time, my creative juices, all that good stuff is going to be podcasts and live shows. All that's kind of put together. So let's say that's the Tossing Salad podcast and the lives, whether that's with Chelsea going forward with our show or not. But we're going to do more of that, not just with Chelsea, but hopefully with some other people, have other shows. And it may not even involve me. Maybe it's a network of people from all walks of life that have something, that are just funny, fun type people. And we're all working together to have a little area to where we can play around, share some ideas on how to do things, kind of a collective creative group, and do something just kind of different. So that's kind of where we're going. So I'm excited for the podcast going forward. Again, don't know exactly where we're headed. We're just headed in a general direction. We're learning. This is the important thing I want you guys to take away with this. We're learning a lot of things as we're playing around with setting up and starting a podcast and the live shows. A lot of this stuff we can basically take and apply it to things down the road when we come across it, when those opportunities may present themselves. I just don't know what those opportunities are going to be. But I know that I am going to be readily and open to trying some new things, because it's just fun. It's fun to do content ideas with other people. I know it sounds strange coming from me that I don't like dealing with people or talking to people or anything like that, but you find the right ones. There's going to be the right ones out there that understand you, that get you, that want to kind of do the same thing, that will do it with you. And it just takes a little while there are other people that will appreciate that content. It may take a while for those people to find what we're doing. That's okay. We got time. As long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and whoever I'm doing it with, those people will find our content somehow. So next couple weeks, I've got to figure out a few technical things. I've got, my phone is becoming an issue now because I'm out of space on it with all the video that I do. I edit not only on my laptop, but on my phone. I send stuff back and forth. I have a really shitty organizational system, and there is so much bloat files. But my iPhone completely froze on me last week to where I couldn't access anything. I still can't. I can only access about 60% of the content on my phone, but I can't get in there to delete things. It's totally messed up. So I can't record and edit as much as I used to, or what I was doing with my phone anymore, until I get that one taken care of. But I can't go out and get a new phone. So I got to figure out a better way to store things. I do store a lot off the phone, on the laptop, on external drives and everything. But even that's becoming a problem with the editing on the laptop that I have. My laptop is 7 years old, And doing basic video edits like we do with the podcast and do for Reels and all that stuff, I can do either on the phone or on the laptop, no problem. But if you notice, like a lot of the live shows that we're doing now, because we're using StreamYard and it allows me to basically record the feed from Chelsea's side of things, from her desktop. So I get a clean feed of her, I get a clean feed of myself, separate audio tracks. And then if we have somebody else on, I'm getting a clean video of them. And then we can display websites or stream a YouTube video and we all watch. It's really cool in the moment. And then you get all the items afterwards. Now you got to put it all together, sync them all up, and then edit it as clips for people to consume. That's where a 7-year-old laptop is causing me problems. The bottleneck as I edit, as I'm watching and I'm trying to edit, and I'm like, oh, I like this edit. I'm going to cut it here, and I want to bring in Chelsea on here and show her talking over here. Once you start bringing in and cutting video, multiple video clips, the choking point, the bottleneck is now the laptop. And it takes me 10 times longer than it should. I'm not even exaggerating. Because the laptop will start to freeze up or start to stutter and you get frustrated. And what should take you at most for a big project, maybe an hour, couple hours maybe, with the video editing, creating a thumbnail, all that stuff, is taking me almost a day or days throughout the course of a week. And then that throws everything else off. So that's why I feel like I need to be 100% behind getting and doing stuff for the podcast, everything that has to do with the podcast and the lives and the Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast show. And hopefully soon generate enough revenue somewhere to where I can upgrade certain key pieces of the production side of things. New laptop. My God, the screens that I use, I'm using 3 screens to do things, which do I need them? Kind of, depending on, the live shows. If I have everybody up and I got to be able to see everything. I've got 2 screens that don't produce colors right. And for a colorblind person, that's not a good thing. But the colors are off and the brightness is off. These were the cheapest monitors I had that I could afford like 10 years ago. Those need to be replaced. So I've got a few things that it will just make the production side behind the scenes go so much easier. And it's a chicken or egg thing. And the big hit is the biggest form of money being created from all of this was coming from Instagram Reels into a pot that pot usually was for the garden is now becoming the pot to upgrade to do all of this. Camera, lights, lighting back here, computer. All that money is going into a pot to replace all of this. Well, now that's going away on Instagram. No more Reels bonus. As we know it. It could change. So that is the 6-month update for Tossing Salad Podcast. That's where my head is in all of this. So I hang in there with me. Hang in there with me. I know I've got a good following on the podcast side of things. And I want you guys to know I am totally committed into making this thing work, making it better, and doing more things. I just have to figure out the organizational side of it and my time thing. And that's just something I'm not good at normally, but so that's why it's kind of taken a hit in the last few weeks. But I had to get out here on a podcast to let you guys know where we are, where we're headed with the podcast. Not going anywhere. My resolve is strong. The desire to continue doing the podcast is as high as it's ever been. and I'm looking forward to doing more. So hang in there. If you have some ideas, if you want to do some things, here's one more thing I'll leave you with. A lot of this is hopefully helping you in saying, look, maybe you've been thinking of doing something on your own also, that you've always thought, maybe I want to do more lives. Maybe I want to have a live show. Maybe I want to do a podcast. Hopefully what I am doing can actually motivate somebody else, because to get me to do anything sometimes it's impossible. I get into a rut, depressed about things or whatever. This was a big step for me, but it's something that I've been working on personally over the last few years. Now I'm like, look, let's just do it. Let's give it a try. Let's do it. I built up a great following within gardening. Let's change it. I don't enjoy, or I want to do something different, then let's change and do something different. So if you have gotten into that space also, I'll help you brainstorm, come up with ideas, give you my 2 cents if you want it. But if it's a little push in one direction or the other for you to maybe do something that you wanted to do, I'm all for it. And if there's a show or podcast idea or something that you would want to do either on your own with a friend, I'll help you out with that. Or you want to pitch me something, I'm all for that too. We can do it together. So, I mean, it's not a guarantee that we'll do it together, but I am here to basically show you that you can do it also. Take a chance, bet on yourself. And if you don't like it, then change, then do something else. If you're not liking what you're doing or how you're spending your time, then change it, do something else. And there's no pressure or obligation into having something that's super popular or anything like that. You do something that you enjoy, that you want to do, that you enjoy, that gets your creative juices going. That's what I'm saying. All right, guys, come back. Actually, go check out what Chelsea and I are doing. Brian and Chelsea Make a Podcast. It's on all of the Tossing Salad podcast channels that we have out there. We're going to have another live coming up this week. And then hopefully in the next week or two, we'll continue with the Tossing Salad podcast interviews that we have. Those are going to be fun. All right, we'll see you.